Hey everyone, let's jump right into this explainer. When we think of heritage, our minds usually jump straight to ancient forts, grand palaces, or, beautifully carved temples. But there's a whole other layer of history literally right beneath our feet. We're talking about a history written in stone, shaped by water and forged by tectonic plates over millions of years. Today, we're exploring this absolutely fascinating intersection where the immense timeline of geology meets the deeply personal realm of human faith and community. Think about the sheer scale of India's natural landscapes for a second. The Mahabharata Deccan Traps, for instance, these massive layered volcanic formations are a prime example of the country's stunning geodiversity. And this incredible natural wealth actually took center stage recently at the 2025 National Conference on Geodiversity and Geoheritage in Delhi. You had scientists, researchers, and policymakers all gathering to figure out how to identify, protect, and sustainably develop these totally unique geological sites across the subcontinent. It is a massive undertaking, right? Mapping out millions of years of Earth's history across such a vast geography. So, what's the big takeaway here? Well, geoheritage isn't just about dead rocks. It's all about the significant geological features, landforms, and landscapes that actually hold cultural, historical, or scientific value for society. It's that deep, basically inextricable connection between Earth's history and human culture. A mountain isn't just a pile of granite. It might be a sacred peak. A river isn't just a drainage system, it's the lifeblood of a civilization. Geoheritage recognizes that our human stories are physically grounded in the landscapes we live in. Which, of course, brings us to a pretty fascinating question. What does all this geoheritage actually look like up close, where everyday people live, work, and worship? Because sure, it's one thing to talk about massive volcanic traps from a distance, but how do these geological wonders integrate into the daily lives of local communities? To answer that, let's zoom in from those high-level academic discussions in Delhi down to a single mystical location nestled right in the Himalayan foothills of Dehradun.
Let's head over and explore the Dripping Cave Temple.
Imagine a place where geology quite literally shapes the spiritual experience. The Tapkeshwar Mahadev Temple is an absolute geological marvel. It's nestled right on the banks of the Tons or Tamsha River, and the main shrine is situated deep within a natural karst cave system. If you're not familiar, karst landscapes are formed by the dissolution of soluble rocks, which creates these incredible underground networks. The area also features cool, natural sulfur water springs where devoted pilgrims often take a dip. But the absolute most striking feature, and the one that gives the temple its name, is that water continuously drips from the cave ceiling directly onto a single stone Shiva Lingam below. It literally never stops. It's this beautiful geological mystery that our ancestors observed, revered, and eventually explained through a deeply moving story. And that brings us to the legend of Ashwatthama. Long before we were throwing around scientific vocabulary like karst topography and soluble limestone, human beings found profound meaning in this dripping cave. The legend actually ties this very site to the great epic, the Mahabharata. It's said that Guru Dronacharya, the legendary teacher of the Pandavas and Kauravas, lived in these dense forests with his wife Kalyani. Now, they were incredibly poor. When Drona went to his childhood friend King Draupada just to ask for a cow so he could give his infant son milk, he was mocked and turned away. Returning to the cave, he found his son, Ashwatthama, crying from hunger, and the child's tears fell right onto the Shiva Linga. Moved by the father's desperation and the child's pure devotion, Lord Shiva granted a miracle. He caused pure milk to drip continuously from the solid rock ceiling of the cave to feed the child. I mean, what a powerful narrative, right? A father's desperation, a divine miracle, and a cave that literally begins to weep milk to feed a hungry child. Over the ages, the identity of the site actually evolved right alongside the legend. Back in the ancient era of the Dwapar Yuga, because of the dripping milk, the temple was known as Doodleshwar. Today, in what we call the Kali Yuga, it drips with water, which gives us the modern name Tapkeshwar, derived from the Hindi word tapakna, which means to drip. The substance itself might have changed in the lore, but the reverence for the site, that remained absolute. The physical geology of the dripping cave became the anchor for centuries of completely unbroken faith.
But let's shift gears for a second and talk about community action and resilience.
Because these geoheritage sites, they are not just static museums. They're living, breathing spaces. They aren't just relics of the past. They foster incredible community strength, especially during modern crises. The connection people have to these landscapes translates into real-world action. We can see how the temple and its people have weathered some massive modern storms. First, think about the impact of the 2020 pandemic. The sudden lockdown struck right around the time of the massive Mahashivratri fair, which left a ton of traveling pilgrims and ascetics completely stranded at the temple with nowhere to go. And then, just about a year and a half ago, the area was hit by a totally devastating natural disaster. A massive cloudburst caused a surge of water that actually washed away the temple's bridge and the old idol. But the community, they didn't abandon the site, no way. They rallied, they reconstructed the affected areas, and they installed a beautiful new Shiva idol, really proving their enduring bond with this space. And honestly, this is where the story gets incredibly inspiring. Out of that whole pandemic crisis emerged a group called the Yuva Sangathan, or Youth Organization. Now, this wasn't some government-funded initiative. This was made up of over 125 middle-class young people who literally pooled their own pocket money together. They used the Tapkeshwar Temple as a base of compassion. They took it upon themselves to manually sanitize vast neighborhoods like Gari and Govindgarh. Even more than that, they set up kitchens to feed and provide daily tea to the 50 or 60 ascetics and pilgrims who were stranded at the temple during the lockdown. They protected their city and cared for the vulnerable, and it was all anchored around this ancient geological and spiritual site.
So how does all this tie into protecting deep time? Well, this brings us full circle back to the core idea discussed at the national conference in Delhi that we mentioned at the very beginning of our explainer. We've looked at the macro and we've explored the micro. There was a paper presented at that 2025 conference by Sudesh Kumar Wadawan titled Culturally Aligned Conservation of Geodiversity, Role of Sacred Spaces for Interconnectedness. I know, it's a bit of a mouthful, but this specific academic concept perfectly summarizes exactly what we just saw at Tapkeshwar. If we really want to conserve our geological wonders, we can't just throw fences around them. We have to recognize that these ancient sacred spaces are the ultimate tools for interconnectedness. Think about it. The geology created the cave inspired the myth drew the community, and then the community protected each other during a crisis. That is exactly what culturally aligned conservation looks like in action.
I really want to leave you with this brilliant thought from Marcel Proust. He said, "The real voyage of discovery consists not in seeking new landscapes, but in having new eyes." Geoheritage literally gives us those new eyes. It allows us to look at a simple dripping rock and suddenly see millions of years of Earth's history, thousands of years of human mythology, and the totally unbreakable spirit of a modern community. So the next time you look at a dripping cave, a mountain spring, or maybe even just a unique rock formation in your own hometown, what hidden stories of deep time and community resilience are you going to discover?